Hi everyone, continuing from our first video, we're going to show you in this tutorial how to add new properties to your current Parse application for some of your collections and how to create new custom classes for your Parse application. And to review what we have a Parse server running locally on my machine with 3 users that we signed up using the API we showed you in the first video, Joe, Jim, and Fred usernames. And then we have the script we were working on. Again, we have a boot script we're going to load in IRB. We load Parse Stack. We use .env just to be able to load our environment, because we don't want to hard code API keys in our source code. And then we're just going to print some stuff here. So as you can see, I'm going to clear this out. I'm going to run IRB-R with the boot script, which is this one right here, so I don't have to actually type all of it in the terminal. And we're connected to Parse. Our Parse server, and here's API key, and just to make sure everything's working correctly, I'm going to make a query, and I'm going to make a count of our users, which is 3, and that matches the number of users we have. So that looks pretty good. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is, let's say we want to add a property to our core class for users, right? Users have a first name and a last name. So what we can do is we can do this in line. We're just going to type in class. We're going to type in parse user. And then we're going to add some properties here. Now the reason why I have to use the parse namespace for users is because user, along with these other classes, are considered core classes. Therefore, they're under the parse namespace. So what we want to do now is define our first property, first name, and it'll be of type string, and property last name, which will also be, string, right? So the first parameter will be the name of the property we want, which will be translated to the column name that will be added to our parse collection, and the type. Now, Parse Stack supports all the types, and you can read the documentation on Parse and what types are available. There's bytes, geopoints, and stuff like that, right? We can even do that, property, location, and geopoint. Let's create a location for a user. That sounds pretty interesting. So what we can do now is exit here, reload our script, because I've created a class file here. And if we go to I've loaded the class, I can, see that everything's working fine, but I don't see any columns. Well, just because you've added it and defined them in your models doesn't mean that Parse Stack has automatically modified your schema. You can modify your schema in 2 ways. You can go to the dashboard and click edit, and you can add a column of a particular type, or you can have Parse Stack do it for you, and you can do it with Parse Stack, which is pretty easy. After you define your models and you've kind of booted up, you can just call auto upgrade. Parse auto upgrade will do a non-destructive modification of your schema, so any new columns it'll just go ahead and add, but any changes you made to your properties, it will never delete any columns. So it's pure non-destructive. So there you go. It looks like it went well. So if I refresh this and I go to my user table, I should see now that I have a few columns. I have a last name, a first name, and a location, and all the types match properly. But one thing you might be wondering is, why is it camel case or lowercase camel case in the column name, but it is snake case in the property name? What we do is we follow the convention in Ruby where all property accessors will be in snake case, and Parse Stack will automatically do the transformation or translation of that column name to its kind of JavaScript style notation of lowercase first camel case. So you don't have to worry about it, but that's the general convention. And there's a way to turn it off if you want it to be literal, to make sure that whatever you define, this property matches the column name. But both accessors are available, and we'll show you that in a second. So if I have now first name, last name, and location for these users, I can come to the dashboard. So let's see, we have Joe here. Let's put them together. Let's organize this a little bit better. Okay, first name, last name, username. Okay, so for Fred, let's give him a first name of Fred. How about Livingston? That sounds good. Livingston, sure, sounds good. Jim, I know Jim, and his last name is Bean. And Joe, how about Joe, his first name, and Joe, Banjo, that rhymes, that's pretty good. So now I have first name and last name that I've added here. So when I come back to my console here, I can go get one of our users, and I did a username here, and user's first name, which we already said is Joe. But again, I was saying that just because it's in snake case by default, we also make the first name. We also make an alias to the camel case version available for you if you want to, and you can still change that. Joey, user, save. That'll save the record. If I come here and refresh it, someone should be Joey, and he is. Perfect. Okay, but to do something a little bit more interesting, let's model these users as if they were authors and authors of books, right? So what we can do is create a new class called books. Of course, it's going to be a singular. All classes are defined singular, but because it's a custom class, not a core class, what we want to do is have it inherit from parse object, and that will make sure that Parse Stack knows about this class. And we want to define a few properties in here. So the first property we're going to define as a title, because every book has a title, and that will be of string. And then maybe a book, it has a date of when it was published, and we'll have that. And that seems pretty good. So we can run our script again, boot, and we can do a parse auto upgrade. Again, our schema hasn't changed since I've written that, and if we load the script, we still don't have a book class. But what we can do is a run auto upgrade again, and you'll see now that book has now been created. Parse Stack has automatically gone to your schema and added the book class, and here we have the collection book, and you can see we have title and we have published. Of course, no book, but that's super simple. We can come here to the dashboard too and add a new book. We call this my book title, and maybe it was published I don't know, the 6th of January, Three Kings Day. That sounds good. So if we come back to our console here, there should already be a book in the collection. So we can do book first, and there you go, book title. We can change the title of the book if we want to. Title, my better title. Have it do save. That's true. Oops, sorry. Clear, and we come back here, and this should have been now my better title. Okay, well, we have books, so that's good. How about we now start building associations? Well, a book actually has an author, and we're going to use a user collection as our set of authors. So what we can do is write our first association. And we do that with a belongs to, because a book technically belongs to an author, and in this case it's user. So this will tie, what belongs to will do, it'll create a column in the local collection for book that has a parse pointer to some record in a different collection, in this case the collection user. And by doing user, Parse Stack will automatically figure out that you want to point to this user class. So what we can do is run our script again, and we can pick out our first book. Actually, first what we need to do is Parse doesn't know about this user column, right? We haven't actually created it, so we still want to do auto upgrade. Perfect. No errors. If we come back here, we now have a user column that it's a type pointer, and it's pointing to the user collection, and that's how you know it's pointing to the user collection. So you can come back here, pick our book first. Nice, we have our first book. Let's pick just a random user. Pick the first user. Joe will be our user, and what we can do is we can set book.user to this user, which makes him an author. I just set one object to another, and then I'm going to save the book. And if we come here and refresh it, you notice now the user pointer is now filled in for this book. And if we follow this pointer, if we click on it, we'll notice that this user should be Joe or Joey, and he's the author for our book. And that's how you kind of build simple associations. Now, this is not really that useful, because we really want this to be author, right? We want to be able to be more expressive. So let's drop this column. Again, you can't delete columns with Parse Stack because we do only non-destructive changes. So we're going to delete the user column. Okay, and let's rename this guy to author. That seems a little bit better. Now, by default, when this runs, Parse Stack will look at this and see if there's an author class available. But there isn't one. We haven't defined one. What we really want is we want to kind of tell Parse Stack, hey, this belongs to relationship really is to the user class. And we do that by passing as user. And there's a lot of options you can pass to belongs to relationships, and it has many, and we'll look into that. You can look at that in the documentation, and we'll have future videos for that, hopefully. But now this is a little bit more expressive. So now if we go back to our system here, and we do IRB boot, and we do parse auto upgrade, we're going to upgrade the tables again. We refresh. We now have the same column, but now instead of just being having it mapped directly or being literal to the actual collection it was pointing to, we can actually have it be named author. And we can do the same thing. We're going to pick parse user first, any user. We're going to pick our only book by doing first, and we're going to now be able to use the author accessor that we just created and set it to the user. And this should be Joey again. Book save. If we refresh, it's now filled in. And again, we can now follow that author to the username, and it's Joe. We can also call it our custom fields first name. Same thing. I can also change, let's see, first name. Let's go back to Joe, and book, author, save. If we go back to Joe, his name should now be changed to Joey. So all pointers, everything's available for you to save, to modify as much as you want. So we're back here to Joe. Okay, so the next thing we can do is we can actually build a more complicated type of relationship or association. Now in Parse, you technically have a few different types. One of them is the pointer relationship, and the other one is of type parse relation. And that's modeled a little bit differently. What we can do is think of books having a set of likes. Users can like books. We can model that with has many. And what we're going to do is call this field likes. Again, has many, we're creating an association. This will be our column name. And this should be mapped to the user class, right? So many users can like a particular book. And what we could do is have this be through relation. We're going to create a parse relation type of column that's going to map many users, because it could be more than 100, it could be thousands, 10,000s if it's a popular book, and all the likes, right? So again, we're going to clear this guy out. We're going to have this up here. And what we're going to do, we're going to do parse auto upgrade, because we need to add this new field and change our schema. So if we refresh, we go back to our books and we refresh. Oh, there it was right away. Yeah, so we now have created a column of likes, which is of type relation to the column or to the collection user. So that's pretty good. So what we can do is we can now grab one of our books, book first, and now for book we have an author, which is who's the author? Okay, it's Joe. And then what we could do is for likes, this does not have any likes, and as you can tell, it's a special type of collection that manages the relationship. But we can add a few users here. So we can do likes. We can add, let's see, we can add parse user first, which is really the author. We can add actually let's get all the users. All the users in our system are going to like this book. We're going to do parse user.all, which is going to give me all the users in our system. And if you do this, there should be 3 users, and we're going to add them all as likes to this user, and we do that by doing book.likes.add, and we're going to add all these users to this relation. Okay, and we do that, and we want to save the book. Now if we come back here, we refresh, we can't, because it's a parse relation and it could be large, we don't really see the data in the dashboard, but if you click on the relation, you'll see that all of these guys have been added, right? All of these guys have been added as liking the book, right? So now it doesn't make sense for one of the likes to be the author. Now that's technically allowed, right? So what we could do is we could also remove Joe. So if we have Joe, no, we don't have Joe. Parse user first. This should be Joe, right? Username. We're going to remove Joe from liking this book. So we're going to do likes, remove this user, and we're going to save the book. Now if we refresh this relation, we only have 2 things related to this book. Only 2 people have liked the book, right? We can also do something interesting as well. We can keep the number of like counts. So let's create a new property, like count, make it integer. Let's clear our console. Let's reboot this guy. Let's parse auto upgrade because we want to change our schema. So by changing our schema, we should now have a like count out of this. And again, like count is in lowercase camel case, but it's going to be available to you in snake case. Again, you can override this feature and change it however you want. That's just the default. And now what I want to do is take a book first. Our current like count is going to be look, likes, and then count. And then book save, refresh, we now have 2. So now in this video you've seen how to create, how to add properties to core classes, how to create a custom class, how to migrate your data, and how to create 2 of the biggest types of relations and associations you will use in Parse Stack. The pointer association, which is where it belongs to, and PF relation or parse relation in the has many relations, relationship. So hopefully you found this tutorial useful, and if you have any questions on Parse Stack or Ruby, leave them in the comments below. Thanks.